about the Netherlands and Aruba.
Right. The accusation of hypocrisy.
It's a strong statement.
It is.
To understand it, we need to look at the Netherlands' relationship with its constituent countries.
Specifically Aruba.
Yes.
Okay, so let's dive into that next.
This is where things get really interesting.
This is where it gets juicy.
Buckle up. So we've been talking about Mark Rutte and his remarkable ability to survive these scandals within the Netherlands.
Right.
But now we're going to kind of zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture.
The Netherlands' relationship with its constituent countries.
Exactly.
Aruba in particular.
And this is where that note you mentioned comes in.
Yeah.
About hypocrisy.
It's pretty strong.
It is.
On one hand, you've got Rutte weathering all these storms at home.
Right.
And then
on the other hand, the Netherlands is all concerned about corruption in Aruba.
We've got this article from Aruba.nu.
Yes.
The Dutch State Secretary is thinking about launching an investigation
into corruption in the Caribbean parts of the kingdom.
And the thing is,
yeah,
this investigation was prompted by a question from a PVV politician.
Interesting.
For our listeners who aren't familiar with Dutch politics,
right.
The PVV is the Party for Freedom.
Right-wing party.
Very anti-immigration.
And they've often targeted people from the Dutch Caribbean.
So people are wondering,
raising eyebrows,
is this about good governance in Aruba or is it political?
It makes you wonder.
Is there a double standard here?
Potentially.
The Netherlands has its own issues with transparency.
We've just discussed that.
And now they're scrutinizing Aruba.
Like the pot calling the kettle black?
That's exactly what the note said.
It's a good analogy.
So let's unpack it a bit.
Okay.
We know the Netherlands has its own scandals.
Right.
But what's happening in Aruba?
Well, Aruba is self-governing.
Within the kingdom.
Yes. But the Netherlands still controls certain things.
Like defense?
And foreign affairs.
It's a tricky balance.
It can be.
Because when the Netherlands starts poking around in Aruba's business,
it can feel like overreach.
Especially when they're not exactly squeaky clean themselves.
That's where the pot calling the kettle black idea comes in.
So the note's saying the Netherlands is being hypocritical.
Essentially, yes.
They're quick to judge others.
But not so quick to look in the mirror.
It's like someone with a messy house criticizing their neighbor's lawn.
Perfect analogy.
And this isn't to say corruption shouldn't be addressed.
Of course not.
But the approach has to be fair.
Consistent and fair.
You can't act like you're morally superior.
While ignoring your own problems.
And that's the danger here.
What do you mean?
If the Netherlands is seen as hypocritical,
right,
it could damage their relationship with Aruba.
And other constituent countries.
Trust is important in any relationship.
Absolutely.
And once it's broken, it's hard to fix.
Very hard.
And this whole situation
with Aruba,
it highlights something bigger.
About international relations.
There's often a gap between what countries say
and what they do.
So are the Dutch really committed to good governance in Aruba?
It's a good question.
Or are they just trying to deflect attention from their own issues?
We don't have all the answers.
That's complicated.
It is.
But by looking at the evidence and considering different perspectives,
we can start to form our own conclusions.
Okay, so we've talked about Rutte and his scandals.
Yes.
And now this potential double standard with Aruba.
Two separate issues, but connected.
By this theme of transparency and accountability.
It's a lot to think about. So much to think about.
It really is.
Two seemingly separate issues, but connected.
By this idea of transparency and accountability.
Exactly.
What are the key takeaways here? What should our listeners be mulling over?
Well, I think this whole deep dive has really highlighted the importance of critical thinking. You can't just accept everything you hear.